This Black History Month, we're taking a data-driven look at the misconceptions of how African Americans vote. Eyewitness News reporter Annabelle Munoz takes us through some of those decades-long trends and what experts say can be done to close the gaps.
There is a history, a long history and legacy of Black people using their agency to go vote. It wasn't just a transaction for us.
LaTosha Brown is the founder of the nonprofit group Black Voters Matter.
There's this misconception around Black voters that Black voters don't vote.
Rashawn Ray from the Brookings Institution says the Black electorate is often blamed for some lost elections.
Particularly in this regard, Democratic candidates or Black candidates, that there's oftentimes this perception for some kind of way that is Black people's fault. So Black people become the scapegoat that they didn't actually come out to vote.
Yet census survey data shows turnout among Black voters is the second highest, both nationwide and in California. Nationwide, turnout gaps between Black and white voters in presidential elections have been consistent since the late 90s, with the exception of the two when President Obama was elected.
There was a candidate that energized the base, that Black people and Black voters in particular saw a candidate that they identified with.
The year President Trump was elected, California saw its biggest gap between Black and white voter turnout in recent history.
People developed a level of apathy. They disconnected.
Pastor William Smart Jr. has worked with Democratic campaigns and faith-based voter outreach programs for decades. He says to reduce gaps, candidates need to better engage with Black communities.
You got to listen to this constituency and really begin to develop different policies that are going to affect their lives. I think a lot of times that has been missed. We have to have the resources to go where and knock on doors that are not being knocked on.
But barriers still remain. This study found that nationwide, residents in predominantly Black neighborhoods waited 29% longer to vote than residents in predominantly white neighborhoods. But what about across states where demographics and election systems are different?
So then we look at, well, can we adjust for state effects and look within a state? And we still find a very similar racial disparity.
Voting by mail can help shorten long lines, but even with California's high rates of mail-in voting in 2020, data suggests Black voters were among those least likely to do so. Brown points to a sense of pride around voting in person as one factor.
That was the one day that literally we could go in the booth and that our voice would be on par, and that our voice would have the equal power.
But Ray says there's also a strong fear of votes not counting.
They wanted to actually see it go through the machine to ensure that their vote would count.
Pastor Smart says the key to keeping voters engaged long after the election is holding elected officials accountable.
We call them, we write them, email, and we show up on these Zooms now. And, that still moves people.
Annabelle Munoz, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.